So hello everyone. We're going to be discussing the theme of Rosh Hashana and how we're supposed to orient ourselves to this time of year. What a big theme of Rosh Hashana is. The Aseret Yemei Tshuva and of course Yom Kippur ultimately. But I really want to focus on that. Most of what I'll be saying is based on Rabbi Tatz's shiur. It's online, simple-to-remember.com. It's called Rosh Hashana to Yom Kippur, Balance of Judgment. By all means, please listen to that for a much greater elaboration on the ideas we'll be speaking of here. I'll briefly reference Rabbi Bernstein, and let's go. So, Rosh Hashanah. What are we supposed to be focusing on? What's the orientation? Rabbi Tatz actually asks 3 questions that really try to tune into this idea. The first, and this is a famous question, why does Rosh Hashanah come before Yom Kippur? After all, Rosh Hashanah is a day of judgment, right? Every person on the world, this is actually a day of judgment for all of humankind. Rosh Hashanah is the anniversary of the birth of Adam, right? Of the creation of Adam, not the creation of the world. That's very important to understand. So it's for all of humankind. So as such, it's all of us. We're all kind of thrown into this mix and we're getting judged. Fine. Yom Kippur, 10 days later, is a day of repentance, of wiping the slate clean and having your sins forgiven. So the question is, why is Rosh Hashanah before Yom Kippur? Wouldn't it be more appropriate to have Rosh Hashanah after Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur, your sins are wiped clean. That would be an appropriate time to have a judgment day. You're in a much better shape now, right? So what's going on? Why is Rosh Hashanah before Yom Kippur? That's the first question. And just to get this out of the air, Rabbi Tass thinks that this is important, and it is. There are apparently Mefarshim who say that Yom Kippur actually is our judgment for the status in the next world, right? In Olam Haba. Rabbi Tatz chooses not to take this view here. I'm sure there are justifications for doing so, but one of the questions, of course, is that if that's true, then what relevance would that really have? Because ultimately, when you judge for your status in Olam Haba, when you die, right? You can't determine that 6 months before someone actually dies, right? Or 5 months before. You have to see. Once the guy dies, now you go up into the heavenly court and you have your judgment rendered. A lot of things can change in 5 months, right? For the better or for the worse, whichever, or nothing can change. But the point is that that can hold water. So ultimately, it's true. It's meant for kind of our physical existence, but the route Rabbi Tatz takes, and Rabbi Bernstein mentions this explicitly in his Sefer, is that actually it represents where do you stand spiritually now? What do you look like now spiritually? Because that will determine the kind of experiences you're going to get in this upcoming year. We actually discussed back in Parshat the Parshat of Meraglim, I think the Shlach Lecha, the whole test of what is free will, that Akol b'dei shamayim chutz miyirat shamayim. So this actually kind of orients itself into that same vort, that God, depending on where you're standing spiritually, what you look like, God will determine the types of experiences you're going to get this upcoming year. If you need, if say you're not doing so well and you really need a physically beneficial year, where you have a good parnasa and less tests to allow you to grow spiritually, then that's what you'll get. If things are looking really good for you and you can kind of be tested a little bit to improve your situation, then you might be heading for a bit of a tougher year. Regardless, that's the judgment of Rosh Hashanah. Fine. So now, of course, there's a whole issue that this actually kind of be changed, because once the budget is issued, it does not change during the year, but depending on what you do during the year, it can change where you get that benefit. The quick example given is just a bit broader. Was, for example, let's say you get X amount of rain for the upcoming year. Well, depending on how well you're doing, if you're doing really well, then that same rain can actually come in the best places and at the optimal time, right? If you're doing worse, well, it's like, I kind of, you don't really deserve all this great rain, so we'll send it in the worst places and at the least beneficial time. So even though you have the same amount of rain, you still don't necessarily have the same utility. Fine. So that's our first question. Why is Rosh Hashanah first? Wouldn't you prefer to have Yom Kippur first and Rosh Hashanah second? Question 1. Now question 2. Why don't we do tshuva on Rosh Hashanah? Well, we just said that throughout Rosh Hashanah, this is very important, that your bounty or lack of bounty, effectively, what's going to happen to you over this upcoming year, is going to be decided on Rosh Hashanah. And astoundingly, we don't do tshuva on Rosh Hashanah. You won't see any al chetz, right? I don't think you'll see any vidus. Everything is about crowning God as king, right? It's all about malchut, recognizing that God is the center of the world. It's the symbol of rule, and that we're asking for it to manifest and come down and reveal itself. Why is it that only 10 days later, when we get to Yom Kippur, do we focus on tshuva, right? Again, Rosh Hashanah is determining what our year is going to look like. Would it now be the best time to do tshuva? And it seems like it won't. So that requires a big elaboration. And to add on to this, and this is just the same question, I guess, from a different angle, is the Gemara says that when a child is born and comes into the world, he's forced to take an oath, right? Tehi tzadik v'al tehi rasha. Now that's a problem. That sounds, that's a great thing. It's something you should say to your child. But tzedek, strictly speaking, or honestly speaking, I guess, not strictly speaking, but in Hebrew that means, people translate it as righteousness, but it means justice. Exactly, measure for measure what you're supposed to do, right? Person who's a tzaddik isn't someone who goes above and beyond what he's supposed to do. It just means exactly what he's supposed to do. That's what he does. Exactly according to the letter of the law. It's chesed, right? Loving kindness, that means you're going above and beyond what you're supposed to be doing. Lid chesed, it means to go beyond the letter of the law. You're doing more than you actually have to. A tzaddik means exactly what you're supposed to do. Which, by the way, just again, taking a step back, when people think of tzedakah, they're like, wow, charity, you're doing so much. Not necessarily. You're giving tzedakah. That's just, right? You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Again, it's a mitzvah and it's amazing and you should be doing it, but it's a mitzvah. You're commanded to do it. You know what I mean? It's tzedakah, tzedek. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So too, what does it mean? Tehi tzadik v'al tehi rasha. He already has a standing obligation to do what he has to do, right? You're effectively commanding this child, fulfill your oath. Of course you're supposed to fulfill his oaths, right? It would be like saying, so interestingly, Rabbi Tass actually mentions that making an oath, to fulfill something you're already obligated in, like I'm going to put on tefillin every day for someone who's obligated in tefillin. Well, that's a problematic oath. It's unnecessary. You already have a standing oath. So that's very difficult. Ti tzadik v'al tehi rasha, what does that mean? He already has a standing obligation to fulfill all his obligations. Fine. So that's question 2. So again, question 1, right? Why doesn't Rosh Hashanah come after Yom Kippur, right? Why does it come first? Question 1. Question 2, given what's awaiting us on Rosh Hashanah and what's determined on Rosh Hashanah, why don't we do tshuva on Rosh Hashanah? Those are our 2 questions for now. Third question. This requires a bit of background information. Now, how the judgment goes is something like this, right? According to the Rambam, all human beings have shiur and avonot, right? Shiur are like mitzvahs. So a person who has more mitzvot than avonot is a tzaddik, right? 51% tzaddik. 49% rasha, right? Which is a huge problem, just parenthetically. 51% and you're a tzaddik, you're fulfilling all of your obligations. Sounds a little strange. We'll talk about that soon. And then if you're exactly 50%, you're a Beinoni. And the Rambam goes on to say the same is true of every country. The same is true of the whole world, right? We need to see by country. All the citizens that make up that country, are they more on the side of zchuyot, or are they more on the side of avonot? What's the makeup? And Rambam has to say, the way we need to see each country is as 50%, right? And the whole world too, with all the countries make up, is exactly 50%. So you doing that extra mitzvah, right, taking on that extra level of zchut, turns you change your own you change your own balance towards the positive. By changing your own balance to the positive, you change your country's balance to the positive. And by changing your country's balance to the positive, you change the whole world's balance to the positive. And as such, that's how you're supposed to see yourself now, especially, but even throughout the year, right? You're always supposed to see yourself like that. One extra mitzvah, you tilt the whole scale. Now, there are several other questions that Rabbi Tatz gets into, but we're not going to go into that. So again, our 3 questions. 1, why is Rosh Hashanah before Yom Kippur? Yeah? 2, why don't we do tshuva on Rosh Hashanah? Now 3, what does it mean that we go according to majority? That's very strange. because we were saying, if you're 51%, you're a tzaddik. If you're 49%, you're a rasha, and that's how you're assigned. And that's taken account of on Rosh Hashana. But after all, we're talking about, again, fulfilling mitzvahs or doing averos, right? Or having avonot. But isn't it that, like, once you kind of calculate, okay, so let's just say you have 51% mitzvahs. Yeah, you have 49% not mitzvahs. Okay, so do an accounting, and now you have the net, right? You've just done the balance. You've computed how much positive you have. You've taken the positive and deducted the negativity, and you have that final number. That's the net number, right? That's your answer. And yet, for some reason, there's an additional judgment of being like, oh, yeah, that's the net number. You're being judged twice for what seems to be the exact same thing. What is this extra question of whether or not you're in the 51% or the 50+% or below it? What kind of question is that? Again, you just look at how many mitzvahs you have, you look at how many avonot you have, and then you have the answer. So, with all of these three questions hanging in the balance, yeah, because this is a fundamental point Rabbi Tatz wants to tell us. Here's the question. Here's the answer to all three questions, right? Why does Rosh Hashana come first? Why don't we do tshuva on Rosh Hashana? And how can the Rambam say, yeah, that everyone's on the 50%? That's very statistically improbable, right? That's highly unlikely that most people in the world are in the 50%, because that's what he asserts. Most people are in the 50%, right? Exactly dead end on the knife's edge. And doing that one miss is what's going to tilt them. So what does that mean? Why do we go according to majorities? Those are our three questions. So, here's the answer. When a person is being judged, when a person is being judged according to this majority, there are two things that are going on. And as a mashal, Rabbi Tatz gives the following. He says, imagine you're writing an exam, right? You wrote the exam, you submitted to your professor, great. You're waiting for the results, and finally that fateful day comes, you're sent back your marks. Now, and 50% is a passing grade, yeah? There are two things you're looking for, and you may not even notice it, yeah? The first is, of course, your mark, right? The second is, have you passed, right? Because when you look at your grade and say, you see, let's say it's all listed, by student numbers, so you don't know who each person is, yeah? One guy got 69%, and another guy got 71%, right? 69, 71. What's the difference? 2%. Great. Now you know. Then you see two other people. One guy got 49%, and the other guy got 51%. What's the difference? 2%. There's something much more fundamental going on here. And what is that? One guy passed, and the other guy failed. Now that 51% says a lot of things. You know more than you don't know, right? You have work to do, but you passed at the end of the day. You passed. You passed the test. Right? So what the Rambam is saying is the exact same thing. When you have 51% mitzvahs, right? You're a tzaddik, right? Maybe you have more work to do, but the point is you've shifted the balance into into becoming a tzaddik, into wanting to contribute positively to the world. The example he's saying is when he says 50% of people are most people are on that 50% mark. What he means is this. Imagine you're a tree planted in a field, right? You're dead center in the middle of the field. On the one side is evil, on the other side is good. Now your roots, naturally speaking, are exactly in the middle. You draw from both worlds. What we want to see is where are you tilting your tree? Now most people never tilt their tree. They never even think about it. If you were to stop someone on the street and be like, by the way, are you looking to contribute positively to the world? Is that something you want to do? You're actively seeking out good and trying to pursue that? Now what does that mean? That most people, if you were to ask them, if an opportunity to do something good comes to hand, will they do it? Yeah, they would do it. If they have an opportunity to do good, they'll do it because it came to their hand, so they'll do it. That same person, if something kind of sketchy, a little bit shady comes to their hand, where they could, take a shortcut, would they do it? Maybe they'd do it. I don't know, they'd probably do it, right? Now, we see that this is someone who just he's laying right on that 50% edge. He hasn't made a conscious choice to do good or to do evil, right? He's never really moved his tree. The question on Rosh Hashana is, have you moved your tree? If you're at 51%, again, there's a lot of work to do. You still have 49% more. But you're tzaddik. You've actively chosen good. You've chosen positivity. You've shifted your tree. You've shifted the whole balance. That's what it means to do that one extra mitzvah. That one mitzvah, it's declarative. You've said, I'm on your side. God, you are the king. You're the person whose side I'm on. That is the fundamental question of Rosh Hashanah. It has to come before Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur comes later. Yom Kippur is the extra grades, right? You want 51%, you want to get to the 80%, you want to the 90s, you want to get like an A+. Okay, that's Yom Kippur. We'll deal with all those details later. But right now we need to ask a basic question. Where are you standing? Are you standing on the side of positivity? Are you trying to contribute to the world? Or are you on the side of the Rasha? Are you taking away from the world? Are you destroying the world? Are you signed and sealed for death? That's the question. Are you on the side of life? Are you in the 50+%? Or are you in the side of death? Are you in less than 50%? That's the question of Rosh Hashanah. Shana Tova Umetu God, that we should all be signed and sealed for life. We should choose good, and we should crown God King. Ma'achiyut. Thank you so much.